All right, everyone. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I am your host, Damon Pistolka, and I am so happy and excited for our guest today. We've got Jon Spiesman here today talking about from firefighting to proofing, building problem-solving teams. I can't get it out of my mouth today, Jon, but thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, happy to be with you, Damon.
Yeah, it's going to be great because I really think this is a topic that our listeners are going to enjoy learning about. So let's start out like we always like to, Jon, is really getting to know more about you and how you got into helping people the way you're helping them today.
Okay. Yeah. So, my journey started in the corporate world. So I'm a chemical engineer by background. I call myself a recovering chemical engineer
Yeah.
sometimes because I didn't realize, that I was more of a people person than a technical person. And
Mm-hmm.
so I got into leadership pretty quickly. I worked for the same company for a long time, worked for
Yeah.
Monsanto, had a great career with them. They really liked to develop people through growing them into different experiences. So I had a lot of different jobs, moved around a lot, um, and really enjoyed that. But then, as things happen, we got bought by a foreign competitor, and uh, during that process, I kind of came to a fork in the road and did some soul searching to decide what did I really want to do and what was going to be best for me, and decided to take a leap into being an entrepreneur. And at first, I didn't know what I was going to do, honestly. And then started doing some soul searching, thinking about what did I love about my work.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't realize is that moving around all the time meant that I was often leading teams that knew more about the work than I did. I was never an expert. And so I had to get good at asking questions and helping people to find the right way to navigate things, even though I didn't have the right answers. So I didn't realize it at the time, but that was a great intro to coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's really what I love to do. My wife told me at one point, Jon, when you come home from work and you want to talk about work, it's always about the same things. It's about it's about somebody who made a breakthrough. It's about a team who overcame a problem. It was about that side of my work and helping others to grow and to thrive was what I loved most about my work. And I think I got pretty good at it because, really the way it works is that you don't get your next job until you've helped your team grow enough so that you're no longer necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's what I got interested in. I reached out to somebody who had actually coached me when I was in Monsanto
Uh-huh.
and said, "Hey, tell me more about this executive coaching stuff. Like, how do you get into it? Like, how do you get good at it? What do I need to learn?" And he gave me some great advice, and I kind of just jumped in. I went and I've got a couple of different certifications. And then just jumped in, started working with clients, worked with some that I, didn't, learned what I didn't want to do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and kind of, figured out an area where I can really help people and that it's good, good mutual fit.
Yeah. Well, and there's a couple questions I want to ask you about your background in Monsanto. You were there for about 20 years and you really were able to work up. I mean, in some of the later times you were, billions of dollars in sales. You were responsible for helping on customer care and other things. And that's really, I mean, it's a drastic change from where did you started as a chemical engineer with them?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge change. So one of the things that came to mind is and you mentioned this, what kind of leadership development were they doing with you? Because you don't go from that level to that other level without significant leadership development.
Yeah. They actually, they really had a strong value, I think, for leadership. And like I said, one of the things that they did is they challenged people frequently, right? I think one of the tenets of people development is always seemed to be make sure people are never in a comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So just about the time, the rule of thumb was the first year you're in a job, you're basically adding no value.
Mm-hmm.
The second year you're trying stuff, and the third year you're cleaning up your mess before you give it to somebody else, right? And that was the longest I was ever in a job. I don't know how many jobs I ever made it to 3 years,
Yeah.
but they were always rolling people over. And they also invested in a variety of different programs to help people. So like I said, I had a coach at one point, somebody that was really focused on my development and how do I grow my leadership impact. And so they had programs, and they even had they're a big enough company. They had a department that was focused on this, that building those programs to build bench strength in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the real pivotal moments I remember was in one of those programs, and we had a CEO who was very, very down to earth guy. Everybody knew him. You'd see him in the cafeteria. He was friendly. You could talk to him and everything. But he
Nice.
was really well regarded, right? I mean, like he was on the cover of magazines, like top CEO, you know, top innovative company, and all these kinds of things. His name was Hugh Grant, and I remember being in one of these leadership programs, and he came and spoke to us, and he shared his leadership development goals. And I remember just sitting there thinking, like, he's got leadership development goals? Like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, and it just was such a great example. The company set such a great example, and the leaders set such a great example of always growing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the culture that they had. And some companies just they don't have the luxury of having a department, right, to do that. They don't. Maybe they might not even have a dedicated HR person.
Mm-hmm.
Small manufacturing companies or small service companies. So that's actually how one of the reasons I kind of got to the niche that I play in is that a lot of companies need leadership development. They may not know how to lead because they haven't been shown any other way than what they've experienced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have the luxury of having full-time HR professional resources or org development resources.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a significant thing in business, because there are so many businesses out here that you get promoted because of talent, what you're doing, but there's really not that help to make sure okay, now you've leveled up. What is the kind of coaching or skills you need to develop in this role to be able to level up to the next role?
All right.
And I think it's a huge opportunity for companies, and it's a huge miss by a lot of companies.
Yeah. And I think, when we talk about from firefighting to future proofing, right? You just touched on one of the real key challenges, right, in manufacturing environment is that people get promoted because they're good at problem solving,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So for instance, you might have the COO, right, or the leader of the manufacturing organization, is probably somebody that's been around it a long time. He knows a lot of the issues. He's seen a lot. You
Mm-hmm.
know, maybe she was involved in actually designing the facility, right? Or they may have had a hand in the technology that they're using.
Yeah.
And and so when it comes time, and you're as the CEO to make a choice of who's going to lead this organization, you go toward the expert.
Yeah.
Because the reality is manufacturing is tough. It's complicated.
Yeah.
Things are always going wrong. Like the orchestra, that has to play in unison for manufacturing to run smoothly. It just can't. You can't sustain it for a period of time. There's always a problem to solve.
Yes. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. I want to say we've got Grant has got a question here for you, John. What's one practical way to foster continuous growth within a company culture that's worked well for you?
Wow. Well, the thanks for the question, D. Grant. One of the easiest things to say right there is to lead by example.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so if you want your people to grow, So you're the CEO of a company and you want people to grow, then do what Hugh Grant did. Hugh Grant shared his leadership development goals. Think about how that inspired me as a younger guy. If the senior leaders are demonstrating that they're growing, then other people are going to be interested in growing and they're going to be open to it. I really believe that humans love to grow,
Yes.
and those are the kind of employees that you want. So
Yes.
walk the talk, and people will be walking right behind you.
I agree. I cannot agree with that more because, and again, I said it earlier, it is so often overlooked and it's understated in a lot of cultures and a lot of organizations simply because they got there through the school of hard knocks or learning as you go. And it's as good as you are with that knowledge you have. But these outside, there's so many things at our fingertips right now, literally at our fingertips. When you think about the books, the internet, just articles to read about leadership that continue helping us become better, that it's easier than it's ever been before for organizations to really start to instill and implement more of this, even without much outside help.
Yeah, there are a ton of options, and you can't see it here, but I've got a library of books behind me. Um, books, internet sources, online
Yeah.
courses. There's all kinds of stuff out there. But one of the things that I'm a big fan of, though, and this again is where leadership comes into and the culture comes into play. One thing I've noticed about a lot of those leadership books on the shelf over there is that I was inspired when I read them, but if I didn't go do something, then
Yeah.
like nothing changed. Like
Yes.
there's and I love this. I call my business 1% better leader. And what I mean by that is like, I believe leadership takes work. Like you need to get better at it a little bit at a time, day
Mm-hmm.
after day after day. That's how you make sustainable gains. You don't get better by reading a book and having a step change, and now you're a 30% better leader.
Yes.
It never works that way. Like
Yes.
you've got to be able to practice it. And so the best bosses that I had, were the ones that were checking in with me on a regular basis about what I'm trying to do to grow. And that's what establishing a learning culture or a growth culture, comes by people being interested, by taking an interest in helping people to achieve what I think they already want, right? Which is to get better at what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is so true. I think we have these resources, and that's a okay DIY method if you don't have another option. But a coach beside you that's checking in to make sure you're making the progress is something, and oftentimes the difference between getting that progress 1% better, like you're saying, consistently, or it not happening for a long time and a little blip, and not happening for a long time and then a blip, because like you said, you can go to a seminar, you can read a book, you can get excited about it, but if you're not implementing consistently what you've learned, it's kind of sitting on the shelf like your books.
Yeah. And, we also, as humans, we also tend to have blind spots,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes we, unfortunately, I still do this. I fall for my own BS. My own story, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes is the very thing that holds me back.
Yes.
And that's the thing that only having another person walking alongside you can help you break through those things.
That's
You know,
very true. Very true. So as you were in Monsanto, one of the things, I mean, we're talking about building problem solving teams, future proofing your teams and your business. I mean, you mentioned a little bit, you were leading teams that were more experienced than you. And I have to imagine a lot of these situations you're in, you're actually rebuilding teams, scaling teams, understanding. I mean, in the process of scaling, we see people are moving beyond their capabilities, just all these different intricacies in building teams. What were some of the things that really stood out that you learned in that process where you were scaling like crazy, expanding, and then having to look at the entire team and go, what's really working and what's not?
Oh man, that's a big question. I think one of the biggest things that that I came away with from those experiences was that people can accomplish way more than they actually believe they can. And one of the things that many times I found myself as a leader is I was the person that had to keep faith. All I needed to do was to continue to demonstrate confidence, not confidence that I knew the answer, but confidence that we could find the answer, that we could get to the answer, and encourage people along the way when they ran into problems, when they felt hopeless or discouraged, when they were frustrated because they had run into a barrier, right? You help in those situations because I don't have the answer. I don't have the technical, right? Okay, this is the way to solve that problem. But I try to remove barriers and try to have faith in them that they can do it. And the number of times that people surprise you is incredible. Like I could name off, a dozen times right off the top of my head of people that after the project or after the whatever, right after, after
Mm-hmm.
the episode is done, how we were sitting there and we're talking about how did it go? What did we learn? And they were like, man, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think we could do it. No way. There was no way we could do it. And they were like, why did you continue to believe? And I said, well, sometimes I didn't. So, sometimes you don't, you aren't sure, you're not sure.
Yes.
But what you need to do is continue to have faith and continue to have confidence in people, and people will surprise you.
Yes. That is for sure. That is for sure. So, as you're building these teams, we're going to start talking about building these problem solving teams.
Yeah.
What are some of the fundamentals that really started to come out when you're working with and building these teams and really getting your teams to the point that they are solving the problems like you want?
Yeah. There's a couple of really key things I think that it's important for leaders to consider, right? And one is the people who can best contribute to your business are the people that are in the trenches, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people closest to the work are the ones that typically have the answers, right? It's usually not the person in the ivory tower. Sometimes you need an expert to solve a problem, but most of the waste, most of the challenges don't require a degree to fix.
Yes.
What it requires is somebody to care enough to listen and to help them fix it. So one of the things I ask people to reflect on sometimes is like, what is the ratio of problem solvers to problem finders in your organization? And I learned this from a guy that I work with here named Rob Galloway. He used this example, because for a lot of companies, we were describing earlier that sometimes the senior person in the organization might be somebody who knows the answer. There's somebody who's lived through it. They know
Uh-huh.
the equipment. They know, they can answer the question, right? So sometimes people will say, well, whenever there's a problem, eventually it finds its way up to Joe, the problem solver, right? So we have 400 people in the plant, but every problem goes to Joe. You got 400 people finding problems, but only Joe is solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big issue for your business, right? What you really need is to increase that ratio of problem solvers to problem finders. What you need is for your team to really feel like and want to solve every problem they're capable of solving, not to just escalate problems to the problem solver,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so self-evaluating, like, how do problems get solved in my organization today?
Ooh.
is a question that everyone should ask in a manufacturing or services organization, because you've got processes out there that have problems. Who's solving them? Now, if you want to expand that ratio, if you want more people to be independent and solving problems, then I really think there's a couple of things that you have to do as a CEO or COO, right? And it's not easy, but the two of the things that I think are pretty magical ingredients are autonomy and psychological safety. And the other thing, and why are those things important?
Yeah.
Right.
Why are those important?
So what is autonomy, right? Autonomy is like I'm independent and I'm capable and empowered to solve the problem, right? That's how that's fundamentally that's how you build more problem solvers, right? Well, what does this look like? How do you encourage that as a CEO, right? There's a few different things that you should think about. One is like, do people really know why the work that they do is important?
That's a big deal.
Yeah. Do they know? So is your business connected to purpose that's worthwhile? That people see that this is helpful to somebody else, right? They see the impact of their work on the customer, or maybe they see the impact of the work on the actual business. I have some clients, I have some people I work with that have complete transparency down to the shop floor. Every shift, people know the gross margin they contributed.
Wow.
Now that's a big leap. Like that.
It is.
That's a lot of trust, right? But think about the power, think about the autonomy that creates in people.
Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, and to think about that, you talked about a few things. First, just getting those people in a safe and empowered situation to where they know, right? We talked about earlier, the people doing the work know. And if they feel safe about making a decision, they can solve a lot of those problems that you won't necessarily even need to know about.
That's right.
And it's a huge thing.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things that are really important in doing that. Right? One of them is, is the work important? Is my work important? The other is you got to give people a way to know whether they're winning or not. And sometimes it's as simple as, can at any point in time do people know whether they're ahead of schedule or behind schedule? Right? You don't necessarily have to know like what gross margin, right? You created that day, right? But
Yeah.
are they ahead of schedule or behind schedule? I had a client that this is a brilliant idea. They had production issues and they were trying to debottleneck, and they were about 1,000 units behind. And he went out and he got a 1,000-piece Lego puzzle in the shape of the Statue of Liberty. And
Wow.
every day that they ate into their backlog, so let's say they gained 50 units, they would take 50 pieces and put 50 pieces on the puzzle.
That's awesome.
And at the end of a few months, they had the 1,000-piece puzzle of Statue of Liberty, right? All these great images, right? Freedom. They were free from their backlog.
Yeah.
But every day it's in the lunchroom. It's sitting there on the table. Every day people are walking by. They know what's important.
It's huge.
And so you gotta really communicate to people what's important and let them know if you're winning or you're losing.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and this is the really tricky one, you got to get people to believe and buy in that leadership really wants them to find and fix problems. And this, Damon, is where a leadership shift is usually required. Because what do you think leaders that are used to being the answer people, what do you think happens the first time somebody goes and solves a problem differently than they would solve it?
Yeah, it's like they're used to solving the problems and they don't feel comfortable with it.
They don't feel comfortable, and they can undermine people's willingness to go and solve their own problems, right?
Yes.
So if you want people to behave as problem solvers, you have to lead them differently.
Yes. Yes.
You have to change as a leader if you want people to really do this.
Hmm. I remember one simple shift I had to make. As you, I started out a little different as a mechanical engineer in manufacturing. So I did know the processes. I was a process engineer, and then I was a tooling engineer, then I was a process engineer, then I was manufacturing, then I ran the facilities. So I understood the equipment, I understood how the process, all that stuff. And you realize soon that you can't be the problem solver, especially I really learned it when I was running something that was 24/7.
Mhm.
And the question, the thing that changed it the most for me is I started asking people, what do you think? They would
Yeah.
come to me with a problem.
Yeah.
So what do you think we should do? And I would listen,
Awesome.
and I would ask them, maybe give a little comment, and I would say, that sounds awesome. Go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And, and just these kind of things. And the shift for me was, I look back at that and I go, I didn't even know what I was really doing at that point, making that shift, other than I couldn't answer all the problems. I couldn't
Yeah.
answer all the questions, couldn't get involved in all the stuff. But by doing that, I think you're talking about the leaders that are used to doing this, used to being the problem solver. What I saw, though, over time is some of these people started solving more of these problems way better than I ever could have. And
Yeah.
it starts to grow.
Yep.
And then you get these teams that are taking care of a lot of problems. And you'll be, as a leader, you'll be sitting there with your teams in the manufacturing. They'll talk about this problem that they fixed. It was just, oh, it was nasty. And you didn't even hear about it.
Yeah.
The
Boy,
customer
that's
didn't
fun.
know. Product went out the door like it was
Yeah.
supposed to. They fixed it. And if you've done your work as a leader, they took care of the base problem, so you don't have to worry about it again. And I think that
That's right.
that is the real opportunity that leaders have when they make that shift, is to let people, like you said earlier, do more than they ever thought they could by
Yep.
enabling them to make those decisions.
Yeah, man, and that's exactly the journey. It's so fun when that happens. Like when people start to take that initiative, solve problems on their own, because really, what should a senior leader be spending their time doing, right?
Yes.
Should they be spending their time solving problems that other people can solve? Or should they be leading the business and thinking about what they need to be doing 5 years from now, right? Well, how do they get ahead of the game, right? And that's the biggest challenge that senior leaders face is, you know, that takes time. That takes
Mm-hmm.
time. It takes energy. And if you're sucked into the day to day, you just can't do it, right? And it's not doing your business a service, and it's not serving the people you're employing either.
Well, and we see that a lot in businesses that plateau.
Yeah.
They plateau because there's not enough problem solvers in the business a lot of times. And the owner or the two or three key leaders, that's all they're doing is solving problems. And they
Yep.
can't grow because they're constrained by their ability to solve all the problems quickly enough.
And we talked earlier about blind spots, like, and so for many leaders, they find themselves in that situation, and it's frustrating. It's
Mhm.
really frustrating because it's like, I've worked my butt off to get to this point, and we're almost there, right? We're ready to go to the next level, and I don't understand, why can't my team step up? Like, why can't I get out of this reactive firefighting loop?
Yes.
And the blind spot sometimes is the fact that their own behavior is what's getting in the way of people taking ownership, because they keep coming to the rescue. They don't do what you did. Like, you gave a great example of, okay, I'm not going to give them the answer, even though I might know the answer. I'm going to ask them what they should do. One tactic I used, if there's anybody on this call that I used to work with, this might be in news to them. I would tell people frequently that my pet peeve was people bringing me a problem with no recommendation.
Yep.
And and I would snap at people if they did it, right? It wasn't really true. Like, that was a tactic for me to get them to think and to come with a recommendation. And then we could have a discussion about the recommendation. And maybe I have some advice, or maybe I just help them think about it more. And then
Mm-hmm.
they go and do it. But I needed the raw material. So I told people that that was my pet peeve. So it was just another way that I got to the
Yes.
same place you did. But the key is you got to get yourself out of that cycle. You got to let people, you got to, it's like a tree can't grow in the shadow of a bigger tree. You got to back up and give them some light and give them an opportunity to solve problems and make mistakes, and learn. You learn. You didn't get everything right the first time, right?
That is 100%. That's a great example too. You've got to step back and let the sun shine on them. And Grant had a couple more comments here. First of all, he said, "That's brilliant. Those in the trenches do usually have the answers, or at least the most inventive and resilient in finding answers." That is, and I cannot
So
tell you
true.
how many times the people on the manufacturing line or running a piece of equipment, they knew what to do, and you got 6 engineers standing around there trying to figure something out, and they go, "Just do that right there," and you're like, good, yeah, we should have done that, should have asked you.
Yeah.
And he said, how can problem finders be converted or cultivated into being problem solvers? I think we've talked about that a little bit, but any other thoughts on that, Jon?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that that are a barrier, I think, to creating problem solvers is that often people are willing to live with a problem.
Oh,
They're willing to live with the problem. And one of the things as leadership that you need to do is to, I think you have to really encourage and go out of your way to encourage people to not just live with the problem or work around it. One great way to approach conversation with somebody on the floor that I saw, um, that led to this problem solving kind of attitude was, number one, to come up and thank people. So thank people frequently for whatever it is they're doing, right?
yeah.
Thank them, like it means a lot, and then ask them how you can help. And when they point out a problem, and this is tricky because you really have to mean it, right? You say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you are having to deal with this issue or this problem. Like, I want to help you get this fixed. Now, what help do you need from me? How can I help you? How do we remove this issue from you?
Mhm.
And right there, you've closed the loop. You've thanked them for what they've already done. You've asked them what you can do to help. They pointed out a problem. You've taken an interest, and a genuine interest, and tried to help them solve the problem for themselves,
Mhm.
right? So that's one way to cultivate it, is almost, I mean, even though that's like a one-on-one kind of
Yeah.
way to do it. But when you think about building a whole organization that operates that way, right? You have to do that. You have to create that autonomy. So people need to know how they're doing. They need to be recognized, and they need to know whether they're winning or they're losing. And then we haven't talked much about this psychological safety. Like, that's one of those big words, is maybe overused sometimes. But for me, the bottom line on that is you really have to think about your approach to failure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Like, if you want people to try to solve problems, you have to be willing for them to make it worse.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And then you have to stand there with them and be willing to support them to learn from it and move on and fix it and get better. Right.
Mhm.
If there's any kind of punitive element to problems or to failure, that's a big problem. People are not going to be willing to come forward with their ideas.
Yes.
So creating safety, or even creating like a fun atmosphere around problem solving, of, hey, what experiments are you running today? What did you learn today? I've seen people run contests for ideas. They do like science fair sort of things where they're sharing ideas of who did these improvements and recognizing each other. Like that's how you create that safety where people, um, not only do they feel like they need to solve the problems, they're willing to.
Yes.
They're willing to take the risk to go forward and bring their idea and try it.
Yes. Well, I like the psychological safety. Again, I love helping people through that part of it because no one likes to make a mistake, right? And you're out there and you encourage people to solve a problem, and inevitably someone does something and it doesn't work out right. And there is, I think the one of the things that was always the most fun for me is walking out into a situation like that. And, 99.5% of these things aren't multi-billion-dollar problems. It's,
No.
yes, it costs a little money, costs us a little time, but really in this whole scheme of things, it's not a big deal. But bringing some lightness to that,
Yeah.
bringing some, and, walking up. So I guess we figured out another way that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's move on from here, and not like you said, because you can come at it and go, what the heck happened, right?
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Well, you just shut them down from whatever you want again. But really what we want is to encourage that experiment, that rational, thoughtful experimentation.
Yep.
Because if you are really trying to build a culture that can solve problems and continuously get better, that is the only way to do it. The people have to be thinking about what they're doing. Like you said, we don't want to be we won't want to be willing to live with a problem or the way it is today if there's a better way to do it. And the only way to do that is to get every single person thinking about that in the organization. And
Yeah.
it's so much fun to come in there and go, yes, we totally flubbed this up. That's just the way it is. Let's
Yeah.
feel bad for a second, laugh about it, and move on. Because that's the only time. Because if we wait too much longer, we're wasting time feeling bad about something that's already over.
Yeah, and you've got to really create a culture where everybody acts the same way, right? Because it's not only just a leader that can shut that down, like that one guy on the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the naysayer, right? Can also shut that down. So you really got to be vigilant about the culture. And, if you're going to get everybody with that attitude of saying like, what if, and let's try,
Mm-hmm.
if you can get people thinking about possibilities and, how to overcome their problems, and bottom line, right? This is an easy sell. Right? Really, all you're doing is saying, "Hey guys, I want you to have the greatest workplace that you can have.
Yep.
Now help me with ideas of how we can get there. I want this. We want to be productive. We want to be safe. We want to be fast. We want things to be easy. We want
Mm-hmm.
things to work the first time.
Mm-hmm.
All these things that operators or people are frustrated about. Typically, that's the drag on your business.
Yes.
Yes, all you're doing is telling people, look, I want this to be the best place to work that we can, and I'm willing to stand behind you and help you do it. But you gotta really follow through on that. Right?
Yes. Yes. That's awesome. That's awesome. So as you're coaching people now, what's the thing that excites you the most about it?
Man, it really is, I think, those breakthrough moments. I think it's and they usually come in one of two ways, right? Either a person has the something that's holding them back, right? And it almost becomes a story that they're telling themselves, right? It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, I can't do that, or I can't be that because da 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 da. And as a coach, you come in and you listen to that for a little while. And then maybe you talk to other people, interview some other people, you find out more about the story. And you get a wedge. You find a wedge and you push it in there and you challenge that story. You say, really, you say this, right? But let's pull that apart a little bit, right? Is that actually true? And you get them to start questioning their story. And then sometimes in no time, like they immediately will jump to the conclusion, like saying, wait a minute, like, that's something that happened 10 years ago. And I'm still like in that mode. Like, I don't have to do it that way. Like I could try something else. And I'm like, great,
Yeah.
that's awesome. What do you want to try?
Yeah.
Let's try, like, what can we try? So those moments where you see people like see past the wall, right? Or even maybe better is when you see people who you've coached, who you've helped to see through things and help them to accomplish things they didn't think they could do. And when they start to do it with other people,
Yeah.
because like I'm big on, I want to teach people how to be a coach for their teams. And sometimes that's hard. People like, wait a minute, I'm the boss. I can't be the coach. Coach is not the boss. Like, look, you can wear both hats.
Yeah.
You can have both hats in your office, and yeah, you can't necessarily wear them both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you clearly have to have the leader hat on, but you can put that coach hat on at any time if you have the relationship, right? If you can do it. And when I see people moving into that mode, when they can start to get the best out of the people that they're leading, man, that's awesome. You see a whole change in paradigm. Like you see people who didn't used to trust people,
Mm-hmm.
that used to think that I got to be on top of people to
Yes.
get the time, to get the productivity or whatever out of it. And then when they start saying things like what we've been saying, like, hey, these people can accomplish more than they think they can.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just need to find a way to get them, to get them to believe it.
Yeah.
That's a complete mindset shift.
Yes.
That's fun. That's so fun. And you see it. The best part about it, Damon, is that it creates a great business,
Yes.
but it creates a great workplace. But these people go home happy.
Yes.
These people create happy families. They
Yep.
create happy communities. And this stuff makes a difference in the world.
Yep.
It's not just about making a few more bucks,
Mm-hmm.
or maxing out the profit share.
Yeah.
But I think that in business, we have an opportunity to make an impact in people's lives outside of work and in
Yep.
communities and in society.
Yeah. 100%. And it is so important, I think, to bring that up because, you can make, if you're thinking about it and you're coaching, you're doing the right things for your teams, they are happier. And that transcends into happier lives outside the work. And I mean, it's no different than safety. I used to always talk about
Yeah.
safety. It's like, listen, you get hurt at work, you're hurt at home. That
Yeah.
means you can't fish, you can't go out hiking, you can't do that stuff if you get hurt at work. That's why we want to be safe. Yes, we don't want you to get hurt here at work, but we don't want you to be hurt at home because that's more important than work. And that's the same thing with creating a great culture. It helps people feel better about themselves. That translates into how they treat everyone else they touch or interact with during a day.
That's right. That's right. So it's that butterfly effect, right? In a
Yes.
positive way, right?
Yeah.
Where, I think we can, great cultures, great workplaces have that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, Jon, I just want to thank you for stopping by today. This has been an incredible conversation talking about building these problem-solving teams and future-proofing businesses. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to find you, learn more about what you're doing, or reach out?
Yeah, thanks for that. The best, and thank you for hosting. This has been really fun. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome.
The best way to get in touch with me is to reach out on LinkedIn. So you can either direct message me or there's a link on my profile where you can just jump onto my calendar and schedule a call.
All right.
Just to explore, chat, get to know each other, whatever.
All right.
I love business. I love talking about leadership. I post there regularly. So if you follow me, you'll get a sense of the kinds of things that I love to talk about, and maybe learn a few of the things that I like to talk about outside of work too. And
Awesome.
I'll be posting about ski season here if it ever snows out
Yeah,
there in
yeah.
Utah. So,
It's getting closer for that. It's
yeah,
getting closer for that. Well, thanks so much. And I want to just recommend to everyone, if you got in this late and you didn't hear Jon all the way from the beginning, go back to the beginning, because I mean, he dropped some golden nuggets about how you can build better teams that really can start solving the problems in your business, how you as a leader can help to empower those teams, help them grow so that you can begin to grow your business, grow your leadership ability, and really create a wonderful culture. Thanks again for being here today, Jon. Again, we had Jon Spiesman from 1% Better Leader talking about building problem-solving teams. Thanks so much. We'll finish up offline. I want to thank Grant for the comments today. Everyone else that was listening that didn't comment, thank you for listening today. We appreciate it and always enjoy the fact of seeing that you're out there listening. Jon, we'll finish up
thank you.
offline. We're done for now.
All right. Thanks.